So this is the Theta Living Show, or so it is for today until we actually name it. But this is something that we're going to use as our platform to talk about cancer options and cannabis therapy, since those tend to be two topics that are not talked about at all. Whether you believe it or know it, you have a choice in your health care, and most people don't know it. So that's why we're here, because too many of those people are out there, and we used to be those people. I have both my boys, 2 out of 3 of my kids here. This is Jaden.
Hi.
Evan.
Hi.
Evan's behind the scenes cameraman. He's going to be editing, and he did all the software and programming and everything. But the reason I have my kids here is because, contrary to popular belief, I do not pre-program their thoughts, actions, or ideas. They are very informed. They do all my work with me everywhere, not everywhere, but a lot of the places that I go to for events and presentations, seminars and things like that, I take them with me. So they get the perspective from quite a wide variety of practitioners and doctors, and I get a lot of backlash from people who think I tell my kids what to believe, and not true, eh? No.
Nope.
So I'm sure to some degree I kind of guide their path, but they also have friends and school and curriculums out there that are that in the box kind of thing that everybody's stuck in, and we were there for a long time too. The topic of our show today actually is modern medicine saved my life, messed up my health, and killed my dad. And what a way to start off a new show or a podcast. But I wanted to include my kids in on this because they have been part of this from the beginning. It's not something that they were, well, especially Jaden, he wasn't born into this. This was a huge lifestyle adjustment to us to learn about modern medicine, what it does, what it doesn't do, what the truths are behind it. We were those people who followed along. We were those people who did what we were told, didn't question the doctors. We were those people who were afraid to do anything other than what we were told because it was out of tradition. So just like religion, and by the way, I'll get into this another time, but I am Christian. However, I do believe people allow themselves to be killed by their religion, and I'll talk about that another time. But just like a religion, rules and traditions can kill you, and we want to bring the information and resources to your ideology of what your own informed decisions are, because without information from both sides, you can't make an informed decision. When it came time for my dad to make a decision for his cancer diagnosis, he didn't have information from both sides. He had it from one side. He had the traditional side, what we were used to doing, and people die by that. You die by what you've been doing your entire life. Rules are made to be broken, some of them. Some of them. Some of them. So we just want to put out more information. It wasn't there. It wasn't there when I needed it. It wasn't there when my dad needed it. And you may not be aware of it either. So it's platforms like this that allow us to share the information that we use, so you can step outside of rules-based medicine and into your freedom of choice. I want to raise my kids so that they know truths. I want them to be the change. I want them to know what their options are. I want them to make their own choices and do life with intention, regardless of what the popular vote is. You guys with me on that?
Yeah.
The popular vote, what everybody else is doing.
Uh-huh.
Don't follow it.
Yeah, it's a mold.
Not my thing.
It's a mold. Both my boys do an online academy for that reason, because they don't fit into the mold. They still get the same curriculum, but Josh and I interject with that, and then they take that according to what their interests are. EMFs, Gwen Towers, and all of the governmental what do you call it? Not conspiracies, but
Experiments.
Like secret stuff that not many people know about.
right. So, what got us all to this point was kind of like a twist of fate, but really it was in the works of God. I did not, losing my dad to bring me to a new career was not something that I would choose. But if it wasn't for his cancer, if it wasn't for his desire to use cannabis in his treatment, if it wasn't for my sister's cancer, this show would have never been thought of because we wouldn't be living the life that we do. We would be eating McDonald's and you guys would be in public school under the influence and the thumb of insurance companies, big pharma, and the government, and that's not where our lives are. It's changed. I've changed, our lives have changed over, and then they've changed over again, and they keep on keeping on. We just keep changing. And honestly, when Jaden was little, the information that I have now, I probably would have laughed at, like most people do, right?
Yeah.
And actually I'm sure I did laugh at it. When it comes to cannabis, that's going to be a bulk of this show, but I laughed at it. Some people probably even call me a hypocrite now because I would categorize people who do that as stoners and potheads because I didn't know. Like I said, I had one side of the coin. I didn't know the research and the science behind it. So, and it was tradition. So you get stuck in the mold and you're stuck with tradition, but I've had friends and mentors and peers the last 2 years. It's been 2 solid years that I've had people telling me to put the show out. I've been shut down on Facebook and on social media for just sharing the other side of the coin. So I actually host an annual event, the Cancer Prevention Convention, and this year we didn't get to do it. So I had a lot of really good speakers from around the world lined up, and we didn't get to talk about cancer and cannabis, so this is going to be our way that we get it out there. This is just our first show. It's our starting point. So I wasn't really prepared to do this. I didn't know when to do it. I couldn't think of a better day. We're in our home right now. This is not where we're normally going to be doing this. We have an office that will be doing it, but I wasn't ready. But honestly, in life, you're never going to be ready. I wasn't ready for the circumstance that I had when modern medicine saved my life and then made me sick. And none of us were ready to hear that Pa had a cancer diagnosis or that my sister Lainey had a cancer diagnosis. You're never ready. So what better day than today to actually get started, because nobody's ready for that. Let's see, got my notes here. So we'll just get started. Today marks the day 18 years ago today, actually, that modern medicine saved my life. Before I get into that though, because that's kind of the better side or the happier side of the 2 stories that I'm going to tell today, I'm going to tell my dad's story just real quick. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he was given 2 solid options, chemo and radiation, and they told him maybe surgery. We didn't know any better. That's when I'm pretty sure we had hit some drive-thrus. Jaden was, yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
We ate much different than we do now. Our thoughts, and I mean, then 18 years ago was probably when I was still calling people pothead and things like that. I just had a different frame of mind. I was in the fitness industry, going to school for physical therapy. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. Chemo and radiation are what they told him, and that was our first intimate experience with a cancer diagnosis. And I remember my mom saying, "Don't worry, we're going to do this. He's going to take whatever the doctors throw at him, and we're going to be tough, and we're going to get through this." And it struck me then. First of all, I was struck by the cancer diagnosis, but putting poison in your veins to be healthy or to get rid of a disease just didn't make sense. For as little information as I had at that point, it didn't make sense to me. And I'm not telling you what to say, but I mean, chemo and radiation. I understand it's attacking the cancer, but it doesn't, without even knowing anything at this point. You're ahead of the game from where I was when Pa was diagnosed.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to make a person healthy if they're already sick to begin with, huh?
Probably not.
Probably not. Evan, no?
I'm pretty sure the lady who invented radiation died from radiation poisoning. So
Yeah, funny how that worked, eh? So we dove into it. He didn't know. He did everything the doctors told him to do. He didn't complain. He acted like he felt good. We did everything as integrative as we could. We learned about wheatgrass and juicing and nutrition and exercise and detox and therapies. However, we learned it along the way. The first thing he asked for was, and the way my dad was a very slow, rolling, laid back, relaxed kind of guy. So he said, while you're doing all this stuff, why don't you give me some of that funny stuff that they smoke? I mean, it's kind of it's a pretty well-known joke, smoking the funny, talking about cannabis or marijuana, whatever people call it. And so that was what dove me into, over 10 years ago, studying cannabis the way I do. And I could not come up with enough information. I couldn't find anybody to help me. I couldn't find anybody to guide me along on how to introduce it to them. But everybody calls it a drug. They make it out to be bad. It's against, at the time, then, it was against the law. Now it's legal. So I didn't know what to do. He did chemo, he did radiation. We integrated, like I said, with everything that we could, and he did really good until he did really bad and was diagnosed with a secondary cancer, therapy-related leukemia. And do you guys know what that means, therapy-related?
means that the therapy caused the cancer.
Yeah, so the treatment that they gave him caused a secondary cancer, and he said, Doc, why another cancer? And he said, well, from the therapy. And he said, well, what does that mean? He said, it's pretty simple. You developed another cancer from the treatment that we gave you. And he said, well, my dad said, well, that doesn't make any sense. And the doctor told him, we weren't here to not cause another cancer. You came to us to get rid of the primary cancer that you had. So that was another slap in the face from modern medicine. Their option for him at that point was more chemo. That's all they had. So that's what they did. Shut his lungs down. His entire respiratory system gave out on him, and we lost him. And modern medicine is what killed him. He had a disease. He had a lack in his system. He had deficiencies. He was toxic on the inside, emotionally. He needed to be guided down a path of wellness, and instead he was bombarded with toxins. He was radiated, developed another cancer, and he died. And it brought me to the point where I had completely changed our lifestyle. You were
12 or 13.
Yeah, so do you remember a lot of that?
Yeah. I remember most of it. I remember when it changed from regular milk to almond milk, and everything had to be organic and everything. It was a lot. No more fast food or anything. We were going out to Meijer for dinner.
Right.
Get a rotisserie chicken, no more.
No more. So was that, 12 or 13, so that's
Yeah.
a teenager. Was it weird or hard or?
I didn't have anything else to eat, so I mean,
So it is.
I guess it is what it is, but if you have a choice, it's probably hard, I'd imagine.
Right. So the difference between being forced into doing it like my dad was, because he really had no choice, he was trying to figure it out, versus us making informed decisions. So there was a nutritionist dietitian appointment that I went to, his oncology nutritionist appointment, and she said, we're just concerned with calories. if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're
The ice cream bar.
and you're craving Snickers or you want ice cream, then Dennis, you go ahead and eat that Snickers bar and you eat that ice cream because we just want to make sure that you're not losing weight. So what's in that kind of stuff?
Nothing real.
Nothing real. It's not food. So sugar, high fructose corn syrup,
Plastic.
dyes, dairy, plastic. So pretty much nothing that helps you get healthy. So we had all of these cues and all of these triggers, and it got to the point where we learned that his diagnosis was more of a lifestyle. So a lot of the things that Pa did, he was a smoker for a lot of years. He worked in a very toxic, unhealthy auto body repair environment. He never exercised. He had some family issues, so a lot of emotional traumas. And then that cancer diagnosis itself is PTSD. And a lot of people just relate that to veterans. And I had PTSD after my dad was diagnosed. That was a trauma. That was a trauma to our whole, we all had PTSD after that. That was a hard thing to get through. So again, part of this show, but you have to understand from the beginning that you can't just do what you're being told to do. You have to gather all of your information from both sides. If you're only taking it from one side, you've got half a truth, right?
Yep.
Half a truth is a full lie. So if you're not gathering up all your information, you're in big trouble. So that was modern medicine saved my life, messed up my health, and then killed my dad. So I started with the end of that. Modern medicine saved my life 18 years ago. I went into labor, gave birth, and through circumstances ended up in emergency exploratory surgery, 6.5 hours. Had an NDE. You know what that is? You know what that is, Evan? An NDE,
No.
near-death experience. Did I ever tell you that?
I think you told us that once.
Yeah. Do you remember, Evan?
No.
So we'll save that for another time too, because that's long. But woke up on, I was intubated. I was being breathed for. I was given medication to regulate my blood pressure. I was given medication to regulate my heart rate. I was given medication to help me produce blood. I was being given blood. I had 26 blood transfusions. I was being kept alive with modern medicine and modern technology. It saved my life. Without that, I wouldn't be here. Jaden would be here by himself. I wouldn't have been able to survive that experience. So it was the process of childbirth broke my pelvic bone, caused bleeding, which caused more bleeding, which caused more bleeding. They couldn't find the source. They didn't know why it was happening, and had to go in for exploratory surgery before I bled to death. And through no explanation of no scientific explanation, the bleeding just stopped, and they have no idea why. And anyways, kept me alive on modern medicine, which was a blessing. However, moving past that, because of the experience, they knew that that was a form of PTSD. Here come the antidepressants. Here come the pain medications. Oh, this is going to be some extreme pain. You're not going to be able to deal with this, so we're going to give you, what did they give me? I was on morphine, which caused hallucinations, all kinds of pain medication, all kinds of opiates. And there got to a certain point where my doctor would just call me up and say, hey, how's your prescription doing? How are your pills doing? And he would just fill my prescriptions. And it became a cycle. And then I ended up with gut problems, and I ended up with not being able to sleep right, anxiousness, stressed out to the max, not hungry, no appetite, couldn't eat, and all kinds of health problems. My thyroid was out of balance, my adrenals were burned out, and I could not get through, I couldn't get through my month to month without those pain medications. And it got to a point where it just didn't seem right. I didn't know at the time, this was 18 years ago, I didn't know at the time about opioids. I didn't know. The doctor gave me medication for pain, so that's what I did, that's what I took. I was not informed. I grew up to parents who came from a generation who did what the doctors told them to do. You don't question, you don't ask, you don't wonder, you just do. I think Jaden's generation is more of well, my generation is starting to question and wonder, but your generation doesn't want to be told what to do, doesn't want to listen, doesn't want all of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
A little bit.
Kind of. Bite your tongue before you say other things that shouldn't be said. But, so my kids have a generation where they're looking more for control. They don't want to be told what to do. I know these stories are the will of God and what He planned for us. My purpose in life came from losing my dad. I think all of ours did to some degree. We all kind of found our position in this. I learned more from my kids. Jaden does a lot of deep diving into the things that the government doesn't want us to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Evan does a lot of study in electromagnetic fields because he's behind the camera right now doing our operating and editing and filming and things like that. That's another thing I want to mention. I had an offer for a film crew to do this for us, and I politely declined because this doesn't have to be professional. If anything that I can do that will include my kids, as a parent, it's my job to make sure that they are functioning, well-informed, independent, contributing members of society that can find both sides of the fence for information to be able to develop their own thoughts and ideas and beliefs. It is not up to me to pound my own belief in their head. If Jaden goes off today and rolls through the McDonald's drive-thru, that's his bad because he knows better. He's been on both sides. He knows what happened to Pa, my dad.
I know what it makes me feel like if I eat that crap.
Right.
I can't eat it. It makes my stomach hurt.
And you know what your friends, there's a big difference between you and your friends. Not all of them. Some of your friends are doing pretty good or they're learning on their own, but the problem is they're not getting it from their parents. They're either self-educating, which means they're getting a lot of not good resources. Sometimes getting it out of a magazine is not very helpful, but I'm sure you have a big influence on a lot of people. And
Try to steer them in the right direction if I can.
Right, but because you believe, not because Mama told you to, right?
No. There's a lot of stuff that she told me that I didn't believe at first and didn't want to. Like with the milk stuff, I didn't want to do that, to be honest. Didn't want to change a lot of that stuff, so
Yeah,
it took
because
a while.
cuts out, it's not just milk, that's sour cream and ice cream.
Yeah, like everything, like
cheese.
dairy and all that, and junk food. I love junk food. Doritos and all that stuff was my favorite. I could eat it all day. I still probably could, but I don't.
Well, your body would not be happy, or
Yeah.
there's and we're not perfect in no way, and I am not claiming we walk the walk. Everything that I talk about is, I could have sat down today and just went ahead with a post, my long post that I like to do, and people make their comments, and then people send me those backhanded messages on how I'm making a mistake and not seeking medical guidance and vaccinating my kids and stuffing them full of...
Feeling pretty good without fluoride in my brain.
Right? Because, why? What's the difference? Say it, because not everybody knows what is fluoride.
one of the most toxic chemicals on earth. Was it number 2 or number 1?
Well, do you remember what they used it for? Fluoride was used in one of the wars.
Oh yeah, it was like a chemical
It was
bomb
like,
or something.
right.
Yeah.
To almost put people in sedation, to knock them out. It's a neurotoxin, so you can't think, you can't react, you can't respond, you can't be a human, and that's in our drinking water. So we spend quite a few $1,000s on our
Little
water
bit.
system, but now there's the water, so big
And
difference.
I can taste the difference completely. I can smell the difference. I can smell the chlorine in the tap water and all that stuff. It's kind of gross.
Right. So, but in regular water.
She didn't just tell me that to smell the chlorine in the water. I can smell the chlorine in the water.
Right. And that's something else too. I want to get into that. When my boys were in gym class and it came up to swimming time, I pulled both of them out, wrote notes. Not sure whether the school just humored us or not by sticking to it and not forcing you to do it, but I don't think they quite understood.
After like the second year, my gym teacher did, and after reading, because he made me write reports on it, on why it was bad. So after he read them and realized that that's probably not the best thing, and he started to understand why I wasn't participating in that. So he did, but I don't know if the school did. I don't know if he explained it to them or anything.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. We even switched our own swimming pool from chlorine over to food grade hydrogen peroxide. People who studies show people who grow up or are exposed to a chlorinated swimming pool during their childhood go from they have a higher chance or higher probability of kidney and bladder cancer because of the chlorine exposure that they have, not only because they're ingesting it, it's being absorbed into the skin, but also the vapors from the chlorine. It's toxic. A lot of chemicals that we are exposed to, our cleaning products and things like that, are toxic. So that was my point for today. This is our intro show. I wasn't ready to do it. I'm using all Evan's equipment from his programming stuff, so thank you, Evan. Thanks for setting this up. I could have never done it. I could have had that professional crew come in, but why not do it with my kids? Everything I do is for them. My mom and dad did everything for us. They lived. They still do.
Yeah, still do.
Still do. They live and breathe for us. I do that too. I also live and breathe for my purpose in life. I want my kids to get that too. I don't just live and breathe for my only purpose here on earth is not to be a wife or a mom, but I'm on a mission. But we're on it together, and I want my kids to be here with me. I want them to have all of the information and exposures, and life's not easy. It's not. There's a lot going out, and there's a lot to be informed of, and people tell me all the time, something's gonna kill me, I gotta die of something, everything causes cancer, come on Stephanie, everything causes cancer, nobody can live like you. I hear that all the time. There's no way I could eat like you guys, there's no way I could live like you guys. It's not really that hard. It's just life, right? It's just different habits. We're not in a box, we're not in a mold. Everybody else has to learn to step outside of the mold, and that's all we did, is step outside of the box. It's just a different way of living, right? It's and next time we'll have to remember to put our phones on silence so that doesn't happen. But it's just stepping outside of the box. It's thinking for yourself. It's both the boys do an online academy. That's different.
A little bit.
But it probably is for the best. I mean, if everybody had the opportunity to do something like that, like I said, traditions will kill you. If you live by a tradition that is unhealthy, and people see healthcare as a tradition, people see going to the doctor as a tradition, I can't possibly do something that the doctor doesn't tell me. Well, they've got a medical background, and medicines are good in emergency situations like what I had. It saved my life. I'm here with my kids today to have the show today because modern medicine saved my life. But it killed my dad because we can't use modern medicine as our crutch. We can't use it as our pill to every ill. You can't use it if you have to manage diabetes, to manage cancer. Managing disease isn't the way to go, and I want my kids to understand that. You have to actively, proactively not get disease.
Yeah. Don't let it happen in the first place.
Right. Which is, we talk about this a lot. You can see it in some of your friends and some of the people that are out there. And it's really sad for me as a parent too, because the kids don't, it's not their fault, they don't get it, but their parents, it's got to come from the parents. I keep mentioning 18 years ago today that modern medicine saved my life because this was the fella right here that I gave birth to. Today's Jaden's birthday, so that's why I picked today to start the show. So we're going to end now. These shows are going to be quick, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. They're always going to be video, so you can listen to, we're at 30 minutes?
33.
33 minutes? Okay, so Evan's going to do some editing to keep us under 30 minutes, but we're going to be brisk, we're going to be bright, we're going to be bold in all of these. I want my kids to be brisk, bright, and bold. Everything, be bold. You get one